I'm Shubha and I'm so happy to be sharing with you guys my natural birth story. So my son was born on the 27th of March 2019, and after cruising through a pretty easy pregnancy, I gave birth in the 37th week of my pregnancy, which was around 3 weeks earlier than the planned date. And I was feeling pretty intuitive about this. I told my husband at least 3 days earlier that, I feel that this baby is going to come out much earlier. I was feeling really calm, withdrawn, and kind of like really zoned out, if you ask me. So on the morning of the 26th was our normal doctor's visit, and we went in to the hospital, and the doctor checked up everything and said everything looks fine, you still have 2-3 weeks to go. And after the appointment, we had several things to do that day. We were running, we even had to skip lunch till around 7 p.m. later that night, and we were just like super busy the whole day. So at around 7 p.m. that day, we went to a restaurant to eat dinner, and immediately after dinner, I was not feeling that well. I started having hot flushes, my whole cheeks became red, and I thought maybe it's because of the fact that I skipped eating for such a long time that I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. Then my husband brought me an ice, we ate an ice, and then drove back home, and we both were super exhausted, went straight to bed. So I was lying there on my bed. I was trying to fall asleep, but the movements of the baby in my stomach became super intense, and I just could not fall asleep. So I just thought maybe I could like do some deep breathing and calm myself down. And I continued reading something. It was around 11:50 at this time, and suddenly we heard a sound which we will probably not forget for the rest of our lives. It was a huge pop, and my water broke, and I felt a warm gush of liquid flow out of me, and there was no pain at this point, so there was no panic, but I was like, oh my god, this is going to happen now, and I was not mentally prepared for this. I was waiting for this to happen like 3 weeks after, and I had not even packed my hospital bag or anything, but we decided to go immediately to the hospital, and later my husband could bring those things back to me. So we kind of like grabbed some towels and took our camera, and that's it. And then we just like drove to the hospital, which is around 10 minutes from the place where we live. So once we reached the hospital, the midwife came and hooked me to a monitor to check my heart rate and to check the heart rate of the baby, and checked me for dilation, and said that I was dilated but only 1 centimeter. Nevertheless, I would have to stay in the hospital, and the doctor asked my husband to go back home because it would be probably like 10 hours before I could give birth, and since it was my first birth, it might even take longer. And since I was not having any kind of pain at this moment, I asked my husband to just like go home. So around 3 hours from this time, I started having a period-like cramping every 20 minutes in my stomach. It was quite bearable. So I started walking down the passage in the hospital, and I started practicing a deep mindful breathing, and was focusing myself on relaxing my whole body. So it was around 4 a.m. now in the morning, and the pain was now getting super intense, and I was having contractions every like 5 minutes apart. And I was at this point beginning to feel scared, so I immediately called my husband, and my midwife came in and checked me, and still I was not dilated at all. So it was around like 5 a.m. in the morning when pain like completely overtook my existence and completely engulfed me. I was in a pain universe, and with each wave of contraction, I was like blown away completely, or by a wave over which I have no control. That's how I can explain. It was kind of like somebody was trying to cut my body with a small pair of scissors layer by. But one thing that I observed in the whole process was that once the wave of pain comes in and the next wave comes in, you have this time span in between where you can breathe, and you kind of like forget the pain of the last wave, and then suddenly comes the new wave of pain, and you're like completely washed away by it. And during all this time, my husband was like completely focused on me, and he was helping me to breathe through each contraction and be mindful and be completely relaxed. So that helped me a lot. So time kind of like slowed down and I moved from contraction to contraction. Each contraction was much stronger and sharper than the one before. So it was around 9 a.m. in the morning and the midwife checked me again and I was 6 centimeters dilated. And I was like, wow, I did a lot of work to reach this point. So the doctor came in and asked me if I would prefer an epidural at this point. And to tell the truth, it would be like if somebody gave me a gun at this point, I would be like, bring the gun, I'm going to shoot myself. So I took the epidural and I was like, it was around 11:30. And by this time I had completed 12 hours of my labor. Actually, if you ask me, taking the epidural for me was a very good decision. It was not like it removed the pain completely, but at least it numbed the pain 30 to 40% and it made it much more bearable, and I was now more relaxed. And although now in a back view, I think maybe I could have done it even without an epidural, but because it was my first birth and it was a lot of anxiety and we were alone in a foreign country and all these things, you know, just add up, and I just thought that why not just take it and make life easier. So that's it. And in the next couple of hours I started dilating pretty fast and I was at 10 centimeters at 3 p.m. and the doctor asked me to start pushing with each contraction. At this point the baby's heart rate started to drop kind of, and it seemed apparently the baby had wrapped around the umbilical cord 3 times around the neck.
Push with your power.
Push with all your power. Come on. Push. Very good. Keep on pushing. Keep on pushing.
Push again.
There you go.
Push.
Keep on pushing.
Push.
Excellent.
Breathing.
Okay, and we have a head. There we go.
Oh, ja, okay.
Yes, yeah. Mehrmals. Oh mein Gott. Genau, 2.
Ah, hallo.
Okay,
wollen Sie übernehmen?
Ja, danke. Okay, let's see. Is there, yeah, okay, push. And there you go. No, it's a boy. Oh. Die wollen gerne die Nabels nur auspulsieren lassen.
Gerne. Ja.
Wie macht man das dann hier mit dem...
So guys, Arjun was born at around 4 p.m. In the evening after 16 hours of labor and with around 3 pushes. So I had just a first degree tear and got 5 stitches, and after that it was a super duper emotional moment for us to see him there, and just to think the whole pregnancy thing with the birth anxiety, the scare, the pain, I just never thought I would survive it. But yeah, it just happened so beautifully, much more beautifully than I had imagined my birth to be, and it was so totally worth it. I mean, the pain was so totally worth it, and it's completely doable. I mean, when I can do it, anybody can do it. So guys, thank you so much for being here with me today, and stay tuned for more videos in this channel.